For today's club preview, we'll discuss the Carlton Football Club. So Carlton, new coach this year, few new pieces, which I think they had a good off season. I think they'll finish just outside the top 8 this year. So I think their midfield's definitely got a lot better. There's some nice talent up forward. Probably needs to develop a bit more in defence. I think a few too many players who don't defend very well. Liam Jones is probably a big loss. And I don't think there's quite a few players on the list that are not getting the best out of themselves. So hopefully Voss can help those players. But yeah, I think they're in a reasonable position to slowly trend upwards over the next few years. But you never know, it could happen quicker. But we'll see how that goes. But nonetheless, we'll start with the Supercoach discussion. Fwd Premiums, not really seeing any here. I don't have George Hewitt on this list. We'll discuss him in the mid-prices later in the video. But I have Sard, Williams, and I'll throw in Doherty as well. Doherty probably lost his defence role, and fingers crossed his cancer treatment goes well. But I heard he's been at training sessions doing a little bit of work, I think. So that's positive to hear. So Adam Sard probably doesn't take enough kickouts, so is sort of your second or third tier defender, but he has put out premium numbers 95 plus before. I think he played through a knee injury for most of 2021 rather, so there might be a bit of upside with him, but there are better, safer options, I think. And Zach Williams, one of the players, is simply not getting the best out of himself, just far too injury prone and on the never again list for me, but he's a really good player when he's up and about. Just haven't really seen it for a while now. So, and yeah, far too many soft tissue injuries. So I think we can move straight to the midfield premiums. So number one is clearly Samuel Walsh. So with the Walsh pick, it's obviously we're all expecting big things from Walsh. It's more of a question of what's he going to average this year? Is he going to be on? Is he going to be on par with, Oliver, Steele, McRae, multiple years of 120 plus, Took as well, although he's just had the 1 year, or is he going to be at a similar average? So where does the upside come from with Walsh? He averages 30 touches, so maybe he can up that by, 2 or 3. Definitely runs enough to do it, so maybe get slightly smarter with the spots he runs to. I'm sure midfield coaching. Voss was a great mid. Maybe he can help him out, although even though he's not the midfield coach. And his contested possession count isn't super high. So, for example, I think McRae's is 13 or 14, whereas Walsh is somewhere between, I think it's just under 12, so 11 point something. So that makes a big difference. That's a 3-4 point difference between being one more contested possession per game, and he'd probably average 120 instead of 117. So I think he does slightly improve because he's trajecting that way. He has more help, and he just works unbelievably hard. So I don't see why he doesn't slightly improve. It's just how much, and do you want to start him? So I think he's a perfectly fine starting pick. Is susceptible to the tag. Doesn't get destroyed in the tag. Still does a decent job, but might get you just a sub-ton, an 80 or 90 score, something like that, which is fine. But yeah, the main man at Carlton, perfectly fine starting pick. But yeah, if he looked unbelievable last preseason, except for the one game he didn't. But in the I think match sim he looked unbelievable. So yeah, if you want to pick Walsh, you can pick him. I guess I'm certainly not against this pick, given how contested it is to pick these midfielders. So yeah, perfectly fine starting pick. Adam Chera, just under 500k, played a bit injured last year, plays inside and outside, so yeah, he needs to, there is upside in the sense that if he gets a lot more inside time, he should easily go in the hundreds somewhere, but again, the bar is just far too high in the midfield, and it's just a massive jump, so it's very hard to see him making that jump to a 120 average. Better off picking Neil for extra 50k or something. So probably no from Chera, but see his progress in the preseason. And then finally, Cripps is 540k. enough is said on Cripps, really. He's not that guy anymore. Mentally and physically, he's just slowed down far too much. Now you can add soft tissue injuries to his issues, but hopefully he can get close to the form that he used to, but I don't see it, to be honest. Just fallen very far down. So in the forward line, I have one player's name here, and it's probably not one you're expecting. It's Harry Mackay. So I even mention Harry Mackay? Probably not. Key forwards scoring tends to fluctuate every year quite a bit. So 93 average he had over the first 7 weeks, and it was about that time, round 7 or 8, where he hurt his shoulder, and then he kept hurting it, playing through it. And then a few games later, I think he was subbed for a score of 5, something like that. So it was a Coleman medalist, played with one arm basically for a fair chunk of the year. So yeah, again, 93 average first 7 games. Carlton, you'd think are a little bit better, but again, key forward, only proven over the 1 year, a little risky, and durability isn't perfect either. So for 20k, there is value here, I think. I wouldn't do it. I don't have the balls to do this, so wouldn't pick Harry and Mackay, but just an interesting one. One where he could be in the top 3 forwards over the first few weeks if with the right matchups. So I know Richmond still have Grimes, but had Asprey retire, so they're probably going to play a slightly weaker defense next year. So see how that goes. But yeah, probably enough on Harry Mackay, but an interesting one. Now the mid prices. So George Hewitt is the first name I've written here. So played for Sydney, played as a tagger at times, played defence where he probably shouldn't have played, and started getting more mid time in the back half of 2021. So I believe JPK or Josh P. Kennedy was out late in 2021. Hewitt took a bit more mid time, finished the year with 300s. And the key thing that stands out with Hewitt is he's a really strong contested ball winner. So he doesn't win. When he was playing midfield, I think he was only averaging low 20s, but half of those were contested possessions. So with a bit more mid opportunity, I couldn't find the CBAs from those years either, which is a bit annoying. From his mid-year, I think that was 2019, I think. I can't remember, it might have been 2020. But with Hewitt... Oh no, I think 2020 he had back issues all year, and then the year before was his midfield year. So other than his back issues, his durability seems okay. So it's more of a matter in the preseason. We would like to see how George Hewitt is used. Is he going to be more defensive mid, or are they just going to give him a ton of inside mid time and let him do what he wants? Because we've seen taggers in the past be released from their role and score really, really well. But he might be one where, okay, the opposition mid's getting out of control. Let's switch Hewitt's role to more of a tagging role. So, but yeah, I am assuming they use him in the midfield. And there is a bit of competition for the spots in the midfield because, you know, if he's the 4th best mid behind Walsh, Chera, probably better than Cripps, really. But that's probably not how Carlton will view that. So... Plus Kennedy, do they give Setterfield more time? So not really sure how they use him exactly. So we'll see the role in the preseason. 399k. I think there's something here that might be a good scorer, average in the 90s for us. Only did average to 88 when he did play mid, but I assume he tagged a bit as well. So yeah, an interesting one. Good contestable winner, hard worker. It does all the grunt work. So that's enough on Hewitt, I think, but one to watch. Again, it's tough competition in defence as well, so a lot of 100-plus players there, so it's a big jump for him. And the other mid-pricer is Charlie Curnow. So with Curnow, he's shown capable scoring in the past. I've said it a few times on the channel. His last 4 games, he actually scored really well, and his final 2 games before his knee injury, this was back in 2019, had a 120 and a 150 score. The week after, he did ligament damage to his knee. So had some incident, and then a year later, he fell on tiles outside of football and fractured his kneecap. So first he did really bad ligament damage, then he fractured his kneecap. So I'm trying to think here. I look at O'Meara's injury, and O'Meara's never been the same. He's lost a bit of pace because of his fractured patella tendon injury, which is that's what he had. So a bit different to Curnow. But it seems O'Meara's knee injury was much worse, where basically the way that they described it was his knee was basically pushing up into his quad, and it was just destroyed. It was like a car accident injury. So Curnow's is still pretty bad, but doesn't seem like there was a dislocation, just fractures and damages and stuff like that. Not exactly sure on the proper terminology, but that's what I'm reading. So O'Meara seems much worse, so maybe, I know Curnow's been involved in training sessions early this year, which is good, played the last 4 games last year, but has had a long injury history. But the other thing I wanted to mention is that he is doing a little bit of work in the midfield group. So Curnow 230k in the forward line with a full preseason, and he looks good. I think there's a good chance I pick Curnow. Just wait for those massive games, but I have to be patient because he will be forward a lot. Carlton do also have the easiest fixture as well, which is interesting. So another reason why Walsh might be a good, or another selling point for Walsh as a midfield pick. But yeah, with Curnow, I expect him to be rested here and there as well. It just depends on how the knee's tracking. So little injury prone, but you get the built-in job security rather than picking maybe there's not a whole lot of good forward rookie options, but that's something we'll assess in the preseason. So those are the mid prices, and now we can move on to the rookies. So I have Marchbank as the first one, sort of a mid price. He's 200k, more of a rookie really. So he's a second or third tall defender, and he started preseason late after Christmas basically. So he wouldn't have been in full training in December. But yeah, he's had quite a lot of issues, just could never get in the park, barely been on the park for 2 years. So has had knee issues, calf issues, a whole bunch of issues. So with Marchbank, I don't think, it's hard, not a full preseason and just overall durability of just terrible. So see how he goes in the practice games if he gets up, but I just see it's a hard sell. And his role's might not even be that great. If he's a second and tall defender, he might be locked down, he might be able to intercept a bit. And given he's missed a lot of footy, he probably won't be at his best either. So pass from me, most likely. Jack Carroll, 123k midfielder, mid only. So he's a tall outside player. I've seen some reports that he's put on a bit of size this year, which is over the off season, which is good. Good talent, sort of slid in the draft, I think. I actually thought the Crows were going to take him, but didn't take him. So yeah, interesting one. Maybe he gets a game, because I don't know what Carlton are doing on the wings. They've played Murphy there, played Setterfield there, didn't really work. Maybe they played Chera there a little bit, seemed to rotate a bit. So even Curnow, I think, could play there. So not sure what they do. Maybe they want to settle and persist with Carroll there, because I think that will be his role eventually, full-time role, but we'll see. Brody Kemp, 150k defender. Only played the 2 games last year, had stuffed... he had an ACL last year. He's coming off an ACL. So, yeah, he did slide in the draft because of his ACL. So, interesting one. So, I'm not too sure on him. Tough competition for spots. We've got a few young guys back there, I think. So, one to watch, but not really sure. Was highly touted, but yeah, as I said, did slide in the draft because of the injury. Sam Philp played 2 VFL games last year. He had persistent groin issues all last year. So, it was a first round pick. Was a midfielder as a junior, from what I've read, but he's a forward in Supercoach. So I assume they just want to play him forward for now. So it seems like he might need a bit more development in the VFL. Not sure, but see how he goes in the preseason. And Jesse Motlop, crumbing forward. The thing that stands out with forwards is if their pressure is good or not. So they can have all the talent, but I think clubs seem to want, good pressure forwards. So he is that, but given he's probably only played Colts, the Waffle under 18s, it's a pretty big jump to AFL level from that. We saw Brockman just played Colts and had some okay games at AFL level, but very inconsistent and had a few games where he didn't impact. So it's more just very young in not a great role. So unlikely he scores well, but not sure if he plays round 1 or not. I'm not sure at all. So that's my preview on Carlton. Thanks for watching the video, and we'll see you guys in the next one where we'll do Collingwood. So it should be good.